Welcome to another episode of the BiGG Umbrella Podcast. That's big with two G's. I'm going to repeat that. That's big with two G's, the BiGG Umbrella Podcast. And I would like to welcome on Shane Harris. What's going on, man?
What up, man? It's good to be here.
It's definitely like, I'll probably reach out to you when I first even started this. And like he was even referring to, he's a busy man.
Yeah.
So now we finally got to March. I started back in October, November.
Okay.
And finally got you on. So like I was telling him, I appreciate that you even took the time to come on this for us.
I'm honored that you thought of me.
Bro,
because you can be not thought of. So,
of course, definitely.
It's good to be here and to be able to talk real with you about my life, my journey, and
that's the whole point of you coming. I want to give you an outlet to, because I know a lot of when you get on something else, you kind of got to put on a different suit for a different thing. So, but I want to give you an outlet to really be yourself. Even starting off, where did you come from? You from San Diego?
I am.
So what part of San Diego you grew up in?
I grew up mainly in Southeast. I went to Morris.
That's
O'Farrell.
so funny. It's like most black people grew up in Southeast.
Yep. Yeah. But then there are some who don't.
Oh yeah, for like me myself.
Yeah.
I was born in like South Bay, but my family is all from Southeast. Like, so I grew up in like South Bay.
Even if you didn't grow up in Southeast, your family's from
affiliated or whatever.
Yeah.
It's always like that.
Yeah.
So with you being in Southeast, like, did you end up going to like O'Farrell or anything like that?
I did. I went to O'Farrell.
That's funny. So I hit that on the nail.
I went to Morris and I went to Fulton Elementary and I went to Bell. I was in the foster care system, so they moved me around a lot,
See, so that's even different because I always even touch on with people. What was it like growing up with your parents, and what was that like? So for you, you never got to meet your parents?
No, I met my parents. My dad died when I was 8, and my mom died when I was 16. But I grew up, on the streets in Southeast, and then they moved me around a lot when I got into foster care when I was 8. They moved me to Golden Hill. They moved me to Chula Vista.
It was still within San Diego, though.
Yeah, it was still within San Diego
And this
County.
is with different families?
Yeah, different foster families and group homes, Back then, the foster care system was even rougher like that. So they move you around a lot.
And why were they moving you to so many different families?
There's a lot of reasons. Some foster parents,
they're like, this one is not working.
Right, or this is not for me. There's abuse that happens. That was
for you?
Yeah, I did. I went through a lot of abuse in foster homes and stuff like that.
See, and I always, because I don't know too many foster children, but I always wondered, because I know how much people get money for even being foster parents.
Yeah, it ain't a lot though.
Right? No, not at all. But even the simple fact.
I'm like, if I ever went to elected office, we need to raise the pay for foster parents.
Yeah, but my always thing was, even I talked about with my lady before. I was even told her like, they give money to people who's like foster parents, and like you just said, you went through abuse and things like that.
Yeah.
If they gonna delegate that money to someone who's a foster parent, wouldn't that be the same thing you're doing for somebody who's just a regular parent?
Yeah.
Like you're doing all the same things.
Yeah.
And you're going to do it for the right reason, with you being a regular parent.
See, you bring up a good point.
So I thought about that to myself. I'm like,
maybe they should elect you. Hey, that's a good one, man.
I honestly thought about that. I'm like, you guys give the money to foster parents to take care of, because they got them out the system or whatever.
Yeah.
But the same thing is going, and me, myself, I couldn't speak on how much law or things like that within the system.
Yeah.
But it would be the same thing, like for people who are actually taking care of their own kids.
That's real. And it's like, if you would invest all that into somebody else taking care of this other family's kids,
right?
Why not invest in the family and try to keep the family together, figure out how to reunify the family?
Because a lot of the time, the family is falling apart because they don't have the money, or they got to do some weird or raggedy shit to get the money.
Yeah.
But if that was I could see why they go on both sides to fight. They say, okay, what if they're giving this money and they're not actually putting it to use for the kids? So I could always get both sides to.
I was in some homes like that, like, one parent I was staying with, she lost her license because she was misappropriating all of the funds. There was like 5 of us in the house, and she was doubling up and taking it to the casino and all this other stuff. So,
and with y'all being 5 in there was all foster kids.
Yeah.
See, and that, when in my mind, that's when I started thinking, like, she got 5 foster kids. Is she really just that good that she wants to get all these kids, or is she doing something different? He or she, whatever. And with these families that were you ever, they were all black families who were adopting you, or
no, there was, white families I stayed with, there was Latino families that I stayed with, and there was black families that I stayed with.
What did you end with?
End with a black family, yeah.
And that one, and how many families did you go to through before
8.
you? Wow.
But see, that was group homes and foster homes combined, I went to some group homes where, group homes, you got like 16 kids, or, there's less now, 8 to 10. And, all the kids stay in the home, and there's house parents, and they kind of take care of all the kids, as opposed to a foster home. It's more supposed to be more independent,
right.
Where you got 2 or 3 kids in one home with a full family, and it's kind of like more of a home setup,
I just couldn't even imagine how that would be, because like you almost coming into a family as a stranger, and then at some point expected to call these people mom and dad.
Yeah. And I think that's probably why, I struggled for so long, growing up, trying to learn how to, be connected to.
And then with you going through so many different families, like, am I going to call everybody mom and dad?
Right. Yeah. And I did. I was calling a lot of people mom and dad for, a long time. When I, became an adult, you kind of embrace, you're looking for that father, you're looking for that mother,
right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's been absent your whole life. So, the first people that you see that you feel like are setting that kind of criteria or that angle with you, you're pursuing it. It's a vulnerability in your life,
Then that would suck for you to, like you say, you pursue it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this one didn't work out. Now,
right.
I was calling you mom and dad, and I thought this was working, but now all of a sudden it's like, oh, we cut that tie.
Right.
And now I have to redo everything, and now call you mom and dad and love you again. And so it's like it's like a cycle that's continuing for you.
Yeah.
And that would be super hard.
Mm-hmm. So that's how I grew up, in Southeast, mainly, but I lived around the county. And, when my dad died when I was 8, my mom lost her lost her rights. There's like a 2-year period. I think it's still the same time frame where, if a mother doesn't attend or the parent doesn't go to the counseling sessions, doesn't go to the trainings that they're required to go to try to get their kid back, then they lose their rights, after a while. And that's what happened to my mom. So that's how I ended up permanently in the system.
Right.
Yeah.
And now looking back, I mean, obviously, you said your mom passed away when you were 16. At that point, were you still in contact with your mom?
I was. I would go see. They had set up visits where I can go see my mom on the weekends. And my mom at first had social work, in-person visits where the social worker had to be sitting there, and we're just kind of like hanging out. It was like I was at a meeting with my mom,
right? Because there's somebody sitting on the side attending. It's kind of like, well, I got to monitor what you're saying to them. So it's like, even when you were with your mom, you were never really able to be just with your mom.
Right, right.
And what was that experience even like, knowing your mom for the time that you did know her? Were you guys tight, or was
we did grow a bond. My mom was heavily on drugs all the way till she died. Mm-hmm. So it's tough when your mom or your parent is on, your dad or your mom.
They're not the same person.
They're not the same person, and you're always fighting for their attention.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I spent a lot of time fighting for her attention. Mm-hmm. And, she was so far into that drug life, that it was hard to pull her out.
Definitely, because mentally she can't even realize how much you fight for attention, because the drugs already took that life of her mentally.
Right.
Right. So that's like and I'm sure you end up realizing it, but like you saying, you fight for her attention, and that was, you weren't getting it.
Yeah. And I think one of the things for me was that it was like, damn, I mean, when she died, I struggled because I felt like I was responsible for her death.
Why?
I felt like I could have stopped it.
And how old were you?
I was 16.
And you felt like already at 16 you could have stopped your mom as a
I had
adult.
Guilt. Yeah, I had guilt, I had guilt. I felt guilt. I felt like I was responsible for what had happened, even though I wasn't.
Right, of course.
But I walked with this guilt because I felt like, was I kind enough? Did I treasure these moments enough? Did I do enough? And then I realized, probably like 2 years ago when I started going to therapy that actually, in fact, it's not your responsibility. It wasn't your fault.
You were 16 years old.
Right. And there's a reason why that happened, the way it did. But I had to really deal with that. And therapy really had began to help me process all that and see things through a different lens.
And when you had a therapist, I'm always curious, did you go with a man or a woman?
I had a woman, yeah.
And was she black or what ethnicity was she?
She was I had a couple therapists. I was going through therapists like I go through girlfriends, See,
I don't know too much about your personal life, so I
done had a few girlfriends, over in my 20s, you know. A lot of people out there could probably say they had a lot of girlfriends
I could relate.
Boyfriends in their 20s.
Back in my time, definitely. Yeah. I can definitely tell you that.
Yeah, but I was in a couple relationships in my 20s,
Yeah.
And so I had a couple therapists. One of them were white, one of them was black,
What do you feel worked best for you?
I think that honestly,
probably relate or whatever help you the best.
Honestly, it wasn't culture for me.
Right.
I do hear that from a lot of people.
And I'm just curious.
Yeah, and I respect it, right? Because there is when you are with a black therapist and you're African American, you do feel a certain kind of cultural connection.
Right. It's like they can relate to some of the things that I say, like how I feel like I pulled over or whatever the case is.
Right. However, there are some very real conversations that have been able to have
without someone being black.
Right. And I think that it's all about the energy,
100%.
And feeling that person when you come in the room. How do you connect with that therapist? How do you feel that therapist? Do you feel, a real deep connection with them? Or, does it feel like, you're not going to get a real kind of connection? And if you're not feeling that, it's probably not the right situation. And you're not going to get what you need out of the session.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, therapy for you, in the end of it, do you feel like that was something that helped you?
Yeah, because I got pummeled, man. I mean, when I went into foster care and then I was, had a lot of childhood trauma. Before my dad died of cancer of the liver. I was taking care of him at like 6 years old.
Wow.
Right? Coming home from school, walking back and forth, learning how to cook at 7. You know what I'm saying? To take care of because he started getting sick, And
he couldn't do those things.
Yeah. So when my dad died in an apartment in Golden Hill
And he died at home.
He died at home, No. They came and got him from home and then they took him to hospice where he died in hospice.
Yeah, basically, damn, they're the same thing.
And so it was really rough. One day I was coming home from school and I seen this ambulance out front of the apartments. He lived in Golden Hill at the time, and I was running because I was like thinking it was my dad, but I didn't know.
You kind of had that.
Yeah. And then I ran up to the ambulance and sure enough, my dad was in the back of the ambulance. And so I got in the back of the ambulance with him and then we went to hospice.
And this was you at 6 or 7?
At 7, yeah.
Man.
Yeah, so he died at 8, and when he died, and then I went in, into foster care. One of my first placements was in Southeast Daygo, and I always say Daygo because you ain't from San Diego.
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
Don't say Daygo.
Exactly, 100%.
That's language that you wouldn't understand.
Daygo.
Yeah, I said that on KUSI the other day.
You're like, what did you say?
What did you say?
I said Daygo. I'm from Daygo.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, you mean San Diego?
Yeah,
no,
right.
I mean Daygo.
No, Daygo.
Yeah.
So basically, like, I got into running the streets, dabbling a little bit with, as I got older with gang life, gang culture, in Skyline.
That's crazy. You would never even assume that, and especially looking at where you are today.
Yeah. And the thing is that I was not really like into that life, but I was looking for family.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I was looking for, and that is what a lot of the homies and gang culture is looking for, right? It's not really about,
how hard I want to be, but it's like, these are my brothers and they're going to ride for me.
Yeah. And I think, back then I was still coming up in a time where Lincoln and Morris would play, football. And then after the football game, we riot.
Yeah. You know what's going down after the Lincoln Morris game.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's popping off. Real, and that's for real.
But it's not that way no more.
Right.
Because you see a lot of the different sets coming
They integrate
together,
it.
saying, you know, we gotta build our community up. We gotta build our culture.
Exactly.
We gotta build our economic stability,
Instead
right?
of
We gotta
tearing
support
each
each
other
other
down.
Yeah. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely 100%. And like you just said, like after those games, you end up writing.
Mm-hmm.
With you being in that type of culture, how did you end up kind of getting out of that?
You know, I was never really deep in it anyway, so it wasn't hard to get out of it. But I will say this, you know, everybody has their spiritual experience. When my mom died, I went to church for the first time, the Christian church. You know, I had been to the the Nation of Islam because my dad was Nation of Islam. I had been to different types of religious institutions because I was searching. And my foster parent at the time was kind enough to take me to different things to help to see what I want to experience. But the Christian church for me was where I got my eye-opening experience, you know, and I got what we call saved in the Christian church. You know, I accepted God into my life.
You got baptized.
I got baptized,
for sure.
You know, and for me, that was my eye-opening experience. Everybody has their own, you know. For me, that was my eye-opening experience. And then after I got baptized, after I got what we call saved, a few weeks later, I was because I was going to church a lot, you know, starting to go to church every Sunday. And I came home from church one Sunday, and I had these boxes in my corner of the room. I had a room that was probably about the size of a box.
The size of a box.
Yeah, about the size of a
in
box.
a box.
Yeah. But I had these you know, these boxes in the corner, like the little plastic bins.
Yeah.
I had like 3
I'm
of them.
familiar.
I took those plastic bins, I set up 3 of them, and then I opened up the Bible to Psalm 23, and I started preaching in the room. And then that was when I figured out that I had a calling.
What did the boxes have to do with the reference for you?
The podium, the pulpit.
Oh, okay.
You know, I think that I turned my pain into power through the pulpit.
As most of us usually do.
Because I found healing in being able to help others heal. You know? And I think like there is a complexity in regard to, you know, sometimes people get behind podiums and they're not healing themselves, right? And that is a very real thing. You don't get behind the podium and not heal yourself. However, I was open to healing as I saw others, because I told my testimony, because I told people about my story, because I wasn't ashamed of what I was.
Express your truth.
Right. Then I saw a lot of people heal. And I started preaching in the church, you know, New Creation Church of San Diego. That's where I started out at. And, you know, that was where things kind of turned for me. Yeah.
And how do you feel when people refer to you as a reverend?
You know, I'm cool with it. You know, I've had my own evolution now, you know.
Because I feel like with reverend, something's expected of you.
Right.
Like you're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to do this.
And there's also a expectation that people feel like you're impeding on them.
Right.
Right. But I think my evolution over the years has been that, you know, what really changed me, started evolving me, because I got saved when I was 16. I started preaching when I was 17, and I got licensed when I was 18. You get, you know, in the Baptist church, you get licensed and then you get ordained. The licensure means that you are licensed by the state of California. You're licensed by the Baptist by the Baptist denomination to preach the gospel. And, you know, then you go through a variety of like classes and stuff like that. So at 18, I got licensed. At 21, I got ordained. And what I started seeing, Mike, was that a lot of pastors weren't in the community. They were in the pulpit, and a lot of times
they were there on Sunday.
Right. And they was looking for that offering, but when it came down to investing back into the community, there wasn't a lot of that.
They were ghosts.
Yeah. And so what happened was, I'll never forget this big case. You probably might remember it. Brandon Tiny Do Duncan, and Aaron Harvey and a bunch of men from our community were being locked up by the district attorney. At that time, Bonnie Dumanis, and she was using a state penal code 182.5 to essentially lock Brandon Tiny Dude Duncan up for rap lyrics that she could not prove that he committed any crimes, but she was using his lyrics to connect crimes that had happened in the community to his lyrics. And I got involved. It was one of the first free speech cases.
And how old were you when you got involved with that?
I was 21. Yeah.
So you was already starting off young, like, I want to do this.
And I was on fire, and I was, I got involved in that fight, and I think as you kind of get involved in organizing and activism, you do start seeing everybody's got their factions, everybody's got their differences, and you start learning about all that. And certainly I did. However, it was a life-changing experience because a lot of the pastors didn't want to come out, but they started to come out the closer the victory got. And eventually they didn't charge him and many others, They ended up being able to go free. And I think that was important because I feel like if you're going to charge someone, if you're going to go after someone, you need to, the burden of proof is on the prosecutor. It's not on the alleged suspect, right? And so I had always felt like, that was one of the first free speech cases that we defined, in the country. Yeah.
And that was, like I said, that was you starting from a young age.
Yeah.
What even drove you to feel like I want to help people at such a young age?
I think because of all the stuff that I had went through in my childhood, in my teen years, the childhood trauma, the experiences that I had, the neglect, the abuse, all of that I had went through, I felt like all of that I had gone through was setting me up to empower the youth and the young people and others coming behind me, to let them know that you are not what they say you are. You are not a loser. You're not a failure. You're not going to die young. Right. You're not going to go to prison or whatever it is that they say your path is, right? But you are what you define yourself as. And I think that I had to redefine my perspective about who I actually am as opposed to who they say I am.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and even with you being so well-spoken, did you grow up not being black enough for the black folks and not being white enough for white people?
You know what? There is a big issue with that in our community because, I grew up I'm obviously black and white and Puerto Rican. And, a lot of times it has felt like, you're not black enough for the black community,
right? But
you're not white enough for the white community.
Right.
And let me tell you what happened. When my mom died, her sister came into town, my Aunt Stacy. She's white. She came in to take care of the business, close up her house, her apartment, take care of close her accounts and all that stuff.
Okay.
And I remember asking her, she lived in Austin, Texas. I wanted to get out of here, and I was in, going through all these foster homes, and I said, can I come with you? And she said, no, because you resonate more with your black side. And that was the first time that I had experienced what it felt like in my own family with my own blood.
And that's what the part I'm throwing, like, wait.
Yeah.
This is your family telling you, like,
yeah.
No, I think you'd be more good with black people.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that was when I realized, like, wow, this actually happened in my own family. So, when I experienced that, then you go to the black side, and then, black folks in the community kind of weary of you. They, they don't know, and so you go through all those dynamics. I call it the Barack Obama complex. Yeah.
And what make you call it that?
Barack went through it real tough because a lot of people don't understand about his life was that, especially when he moved to Chicago, it demonstrated everything. He had to marry Michelle in order to connect to the black community. He wasn't really seen as, because of the way he talked, because of the way his study habits and where he was going, he was not seen as a black man who had Kenyan roots or who had, deep African roots. he was seen as a colored white man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, he went through this on the regular basis, and you kind of feel like a reject. You kind of feel like you're like an orphan,
But that's even crazy. Like you just said, like, if you black and you talk like you're educated, then it's like, oh man, what's that?
Right.
What do you mean what's that? That's some education.
Right.
That's some education, some knowledge that I was speaking. Like,
yeah.
But I feel like maybe nowadays it's more so kind of changing. It's like that's coming to be more so accepted.
Yeah.
But definitely back in them times, it was like,
I mean, you telling me like being white is being
educated? Right.
You know what I'm saying? But when you look in the history books and you really look at the root of it, being black is being educated.
Right. It was just always kind of frowned upon and kind of not even promoted.
Right.
So that's where I feel like that's where we kind of stray.
Yeah.
Well, if he's educated or he dressed like this, like, oh, he trying to be white. It's like, it's not that at all. It's like, I like to be educated. I want to know what's going to be coming before me.
Yeah.
So then what even brought you about to now coming where you are now? Like you said, you was kind of affiliated with in the street life and things like that. What then sprouted you to now where you are now today?
So, I went through the evolution through the church. Then I went through the activism evolution. And now I've kind of culminated into something like a civic political figurehead, right? But I think that over the years, the experiences that I had in my activism, in my pastoral leadership, my spiritual leadership, and all of that kind of culminated together. I saw where the church was lacking. We were lacking being involved in the community. And I felt like it was my responsibility to step out into the community. And I felt more at home in the community as opposed to behind the pulpit every Sunday, taking up an offering. I do take up offerings to do some big things like, gas giveaways for people that are struggling during inflation or, whatever, right? I wanted to utilize my platform to be able to empower people in all kinds of different ways. And, I think how I kind of, got to this place is that as I went through my activism, I started seeing that the people that are in elected office are only in positions, but in reality, we are the elected officials. Because when we make proposals, when we make a command, they have to follow what we are calling for, right? And so now people see me flanked by flags and with a suit on, and they think I'm a congressman or a city council. I'm not, none of that. But, I can make just as many moves as they can without ever sitting in those seats.
Right.
And I think that I, figured that out, that you don't need to sit in that seat to influence decisions that are critical to the masses of people in our communities. Right. So I would say that I'm now kind of a mixture of an activist, civil rights leader, political figure, and faith leader, right? Just a number of things, but I'm your neighborhood boy too. I'm I still have my roots. I did not forget where I came from, and I think sometimes people have a, misnomer about that. Like people have said things like, oh, he ain't from Southeast or he didn't grow up in San Diego.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And, I'm like, look, I got the pictures. I got the, you know what I'm saying? Like,
and it also get to a point where it's like, I don't need to prove to you where I'm from.
To prove nothing. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I know exactly where I'm from.
Yeah.
For me to go out and have to prove this to you is more so now I'm looking stupid.
Yeah.
Like I have to prove to you where I'm from, like even though I know exactly where I'm from.
And I had that chip on my shoulder for a long time, I think a lot of people go through this, trying to prove yourself.
Right.
That is, whether you realize it or not, it is a sickness. And if you don't deal with it, it comes back to bite you later because you're giving and exerting your energy to something when
Negative.
you don't have anything to prove to anybody.
Exactly.
Right? You are who you are. You accomplish what you accomplish.
Right.
And I feel like, you know what? Dr. King, the night before he died, he did this speech called I've Been to the Mountaintop. Some people have heard it. And he said in that speech, I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. And I think that, we have to be able to be comfortable in knowing what we've accomplished, what we've seen, and that's credible enough. I feel like if I did not wake up tomorrow or I was killed or something like that, I would be a martyr. I would still be here with all of y'all,
Right.
but I would be in another body, another spiritual body where, what I have done is going to live on. The legacy is there and you don't have anything to prove. So, when you recognize, wow, I don't have anything to prove, then it's like it frees you from, to be able to do more, and make other things happen when you're not feeling like the burden of I got to prove myself to these people. Yeah.
Because, like you said, like that's once you feel like you got to prove yourself, it's more so for them than it is for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I had a question about what do you say for the people basically in the government system or anything like that? They say like you're basically just a puppet. Mm-hmm. So you don't really make any changes for people who like say, I'm not going to vote because I'm basically voting for the same person.
Yeah.
They're just going to do whatever they're told, even Democrat, whatever the political party is. Mm-hmm. What do you say for people who basically feel like there is no change within the government system, regardless of who they vote for?
There isn't change in the government system. There's change in you. And when you cast that vote, when you speak up, it doesn't matter. See, when I announce these policy proposals and I be doing all this work and writing these letters and y'all be seeing me posting all this stuff, people think that I'm concerned about where it goes. I'm not concerned about where it goes. I'm inserting my spiritual energy into something bigger than that. Because I know that if they don't institute that policy that I submitted, or if they don't institute this or institute that, I know that it's being instituted. It just might not be now.
At this time.
It might be 10 years from now. It might be 50. I mean, if you look at every accomplishment, especially we as Black people have had to strive through, it took 10 years to get to the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act of 1964 and 1965. They had to do bus boycotts. Dr. King and them had to go down to Selma, get beat, get bloodied to go through all that. It took us 50 some odd years to get a Black president elected.
Right.
And so if you're waiting on something to materialize quick, if you think that if you voted and the person that you voted for didn't get elected, you can't let that deter you, because when you are doing something, it's for you. It's for your empowerment. It's to know that you're doing your job, and that's all you can do. And that's all we all can do is do what we can do. And if we do what we can do, then we will clarify in ourselves our own peace and our own stability, and we will create that energy among the masses.
Definitely.
Yeah.
With the time that you've been in your position, do you feel how much of a change do you feel you've made since the time you've been in the position you're in?
Tremendous amount of change. I mean, there are quite a few policies that I've gotten passed, and I've never sat at a dais. And a
dais is what?
A dais is where the council members or the county supervisors or people in Congress, it's a table that they sit at when they vote, right? They're elected members of, this body or that body, and people vote for these people and they go to the dais, the table, and they make a decision. I've never sat at one table, not one. And I've saved an academy that was set to close that housed foster youth. I have gotten policies passed where, I made a San Diego Unified School District, they meet weekly at their board meetings. They now have a teleconference line where, it texts you when your agenda item comes up.
Right.
And that's because of a policy I wrote. When I look at all of the impact of the things that I've gotten accomplished when I look at AB 392 and we created stronger protocols for officers who, may, be involved in an officer involved shooting. And now there is, body cameras on the SDPD officers.
Right.
I was a part of instituting that.
Oh, wow.
Back in 2014. These are things that are feasible that forever will follow your legacy. And
Definitely.
I think that if people can understand that sometimes you might call for something, push for something, it might not happen tomorrow. But if you believe in what you're doing, it's about what seeds you're sowing. The seeds we sow will grow and will become trees later.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And like you said, because it takes time for a seed to grow into a tree. So
voting is that seed.
Mm-hmm.
Vote. Y'all hear me? Voting is that seed. If you vote, you're sowing a seed. It may not blossom the way you want to see it right now, but later on, because of the seed you've sown, it's going to blossom because you're going to start to see the results because the results are in you. And if you make the change that you want to see, eventually everything else has to follow.
To basically be the change you want to see.
Right.
With you being a man of color, do you feel the opportunities that are presented to you are different than others?
Absolutely.
So you got to work harder for
Yeah.
even this for you to obtain the goal you're trying to get to.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't understand why you always looking so serious. Because I got a lot of shit on my mind.
Yeah. I got a lot of shit on my goddamn mind. I've been thinking a lot.
Things on my mind. I came up in here tonight with about 15 things on my mind. And I think that, you do have to have self-care. You do have to go on vacation. You do have to go to therapy. I'm not encouraging nobody to go through that level of stress and trauma. However, when you look at these change agents that we've historically had, they carried the burden so others can be free.
Right.
So others could go on vacation, so others could enjoy life. And Dr. King never took a vacation. Malcolm X didn't, he went to Hajj in Mecca, but that wasn't a vacation. They all worked because they were trying to make the situation better for those who were coming behind. And what I would say is that, that's the main course of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why was Dr. King such a big inspiration for you?
I think because anyone who can assemble a team the level that he did,
like a 1,000,000-man march.
Yeah. To create one of the, if not the most historic, arguably, movement, because you got to understand the 1,000,000-man march was strong. It was historic because it was 1,000,000 African Americans standing on the Mall in Washington. But the March on Washington was historic because it was connected to, this man was able to go into the White House and talk to presidents, go into Congress and talk to Congress, but also stand up in front of 100,000s, if not hundreds of thousands of people on the Mall in Washington and say, we're going to push for A, B, C, and D. And we go in there to have the conversations, and we come out here and we put pressure on them.
Exactly.
And I think that inside-outside strategy is what I really respect about Dr. King. He understood that he could do an inside-outside strategy. You can be connected to the inside, and you don't have to let go of the values that you believe in on the outside. And so you got to fight outside, and then you got to go inside and negotiate, right? You take 100,000 people in front of somebody's house, they going to bring you inside and negotiate.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And the other thing I respect about him is he understood I don't have to run for office to build power.
Right.
And I think too many people today are too concerned about running for office. And are you going to run? I get it all the time. You going to run? You going to do this? You going to do that? I've never ran for one office.
You never thought about it?
I have thought
like,
about
to
it.
this day. Like, do
Yeah.
you think about, oh, maybe I will put my name in the hat?
I have thought about it, but I also think about, what am I losing to gain this? And is it worth it?
What would you be losing to gain?
Freedom. The opportunity to fly to Jamaica tomorrow if I want to.
Right.
You're in a box. People don't understand. You're choosing to be in a box so you can write legislation. And that's all nice. But there's especially in today's political world, there's a lot of trauma. And it's a lot to carry. And
so basically, when you become president, you picking up that trauma that you got to answer for.
Oh, for sure. You know, you don't think Barack is happy as hell?
Right now, yeah, since he's done, right?
Yeah, he's like, shoot, you know, and they can
I'm not in that box anymore.
Yeah. And he got lucky. I mean, he got on the fast track, you know? I mean, he went to the United States Senate. He was there for 2 years. He barely voted on too many items. By the time he ran for president, you know, nobody knew what his voting policies were really strongly. He didn't have a long voting record. So he was on a fast track. And, you know, as soon as he got to the United States Senate, first he went to the state Senate in Illinois, and then he went to the United States Senate to represent Illinois in DC. Because I just want to explain this so people understand.
Definitely.
Everything starts local. So there's a city council. The city council institutes policies and procedures pertaining to issues like your roads, your street lights, and so on and so forth. Infrastructure, local infrastructure issues, and local policy and such.
And I love that you're even able to give us this game, because it's a different perspective from most people that we even had. So this is...
Oh, no, I want y'all to have this game.
No, definitely.
Because, see, the way that they get around you is people don't know. So they don't know. People think when I'm voting for Donald Trump versus Joe Biden that I'm making a change. No, it's the county supervisors that you select. It's the district attorney you voted in. What is the district attorney's policies and procedures? What does he or she believe in? It's the local city council members. It's the mayor. These are the local people who are going to make a major impact on your life. And so, you know, when I started learning that I could be involved on that level, then it does become national, because whatever takes place locally does translate into national politics, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
What was your time like being on Dr. Phil?
Man, that was something else. I mean, Dr. Phil this is his last season, you know? So to have been able to sit with a legend and talk to someone who was groomed by Oprah, and be able to sit at the table and talk to him about issues that I care deeply about,
right,
such as criminal justice reform, and looking at how we can rehabilitate people back into society. You know, we got a lot wrong with the war on drugs. There was too many people locked up for things that were too small.
Right.
And for too long.
Really long.
20 years for a joint.
Right. I'm about to say for like a weed, for a marijuana charge, you 20 years, and you're like, wait, 20 years just for some weed?
And now y'all all smoking joints. All
right.
y'all.
And now it's legal. Yeah, I could attest.
Yeah. So I think that when you look at all of that and you look at where we have come from, having that conversation with him, yes, there is a real serious crime issue that needs to matter to all of us. None of us want our aunt, uncle, son, daughter to walk out on the street and be shot by police or shot by a community member. So we have a crime epidemic. It's not the highest crime we've ever seen.
Right.
Some people said that, and that's not true.
Right.
But it's high crime. And to have that conversation with people who are considered more heavy police on the police side, and those of us who are considered reformist, right? To be able to have a collective conversation and not be disrespectful, not be overbearing, but to exchange ideas, even in our differences,
right?
Man, it's priceless. And I think that we have lost what I call civil We have lost the civil middle line. We don't talk to each other no more. We walk right past each other. We disagree with each other. And if there's a disagreement, we make it personal. I think that we've got to move back to the center where we have the conversations with each other when we disagree. And that was a beautiful thing about that conversation. There were some there who were saying, no, we need to lock these people up for longer sentences. And I argued back and I say, okay, on a first offense, you lock them up for 5-10 years for robbery. What did that really solve? And we can have that conversation back and forth to get to a solution. It's a beautiful thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's like you guys are coming from two different perspectives, but we're able just to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Instead of arguing, and we're able just to, even at the end, agree to disagree.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't start out activism like that though. When I first started, I was a firebrand, and I didn't care where you came from. I didn't care about your experience. All I cared about was my initiative and what I said and this and that.
Yeah.
And I think that I had to learn how to understand and learn where people come from. Because everybody comes from a different place.
100%.
So when I stand up there with the flags and I say patriotism, I know a lot of people don't understand what I mean. And I know a lot of people say, well, why are you wearing the flags? You from Africa. Yeah. However, we're in America. And what I believe in is that we bring everybody together, even with our differences, because they say that we're not American. So I stand with the flags and I affirm that we are.
So, and when you say they say we're not American, are you saying we as in black people?
No, I mean...
Or what do you mean as you say they say we're not American?
The perception is that white America does not see us as Americans.
Do you believe that?
No, because I stand with the flags every time I speak.
So you do believe that white perception does believe we are Americans?
I do. I don't believe that some think that because of the BLM protests or because of the perspectives that our community shares publicly, that the perception is that we don't want to be American. And so what I have tried to channel is that when I stand and I speak on the issues affecting my community with the flags flanked behind me, I'm sending a thorough message that I am an American. However, this is my perspective, which makes America beautiful, is that you can have your perspective and I can have mine. And that's patriotism. That's America. Yeah.
What's been the hardest part for the journey as to where you are now? Like what to get to where you are today, what's been the hardest part to kind of attain that goal? And I'm sure you got more so that you're even shooting to get to, but as of where you are today, what's been the hardest part to get there?
Work-life balance, man. I mean, I suck at that, you know? I think, look at all the scandals that have come out of high-level figureheads. I'm a high-level figurehead.
Right.
Or I'm near there. And so you feel a lot of pressure, right?
And when you say pressure, what type of pressure do you feel?
Pressure, your dating life shrinks, right?
Your dating life.
Yeah, like my dating life sucks.
Because you kind of got to be more on your toes.
Yeah, because you don't know who they sent to get you off track.
Right.
Maybe you picked up a girl and she put something in the bottom of your seat and she got out the car and you got pulled over by the police and they found a 10 ounce of cocaine in your car.
That sounds like a goddamn personal experience.
No, I mean, it never happened. God forbid.
Yeah.
But my point is that when you're on this level and you're such
a public figure,
you're such a, especially in the political space, and you're making all these changes without having ever sat on a dais, you are a threat to a lot of people and they're looking to take you down.
Right.
And so you feel pressure in that kind of way. But we all feel our pressures, right?
Right. 100%.
We all have our own pressures. It might be you and your marriage and, you know, you got 2 kids and you got to make ends meet. You got to, whatever it is, like we all have our different pressures, and trying to find that work-life balance has really been a struggle for me, as I've gotten older throughout the years, and I think that that's important because, working and working and working is not good for anybody.
Too much of anything ain't too good.
Too much of anything ain't too good. And so I think that there is a balance that needs to be, that you need to strike. And it's been my biggest challenge, is trying to make sure that I am taking time for me while I do all this work.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So at this point, what does it even take for a woman, like basically qualities, for her to lock you down?
Oh, God.
Yeah, well, what does that even take now? Since, like you said, you're on this different level. What does that take for a woman that you would even be interested in to be like, okay, you know what?
She's got to almost be higher level than me.
Mm-hmm.
Because if she's higher level than me, then she has a lot to lose.
Right.
Right. And if she has a lot to lose, chances are she's not going to do anything that's going to harm or hurt me.
Right.
Right.
She's not going to put that 10-pound of cocaine on the bottom of your seat and get you put over.
Right.
Or she got a lot to lose as well.
Right. And so I think it's that, we have to remember that, wherever you are in your life, you have to date a level up, right? To be able to know that person, when they don't have anything to lose, you're in a much safer position, right?
And in a way, it almost helps you level up.
Yeah. When they don't have anything to lose, you're in a dangerous situation. When they do have something to lose, you're in a much safer situation.
Right.
And I think that, it gets harder as you start to climb and you get to the place that I'm at and others are at, and you try to find someone who's on a higher level than you, right? It does, get difficult. In the process of dating, I have to be very strategic, right? So I might not even pick somebody up. I might meet somebody at a restaurant or, whatever the case is, try to get to know you first. And then, maybe, we could build a relationship, right? But I think it is very challenging when you're in the position that I'm in because you don't know what people's intentions are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then with you not knowing people's intentions are, do you feel like you kind of maybe eliminate everybody before you even give them a chance because you're like, well, I don't know if they're going to be on this or that, that. Kind of make you question everything before you even want to partake in that situation. So you feel like that kind of limits you.
Yeah, cause I'll cut you off in a minute. I mean,
yeah.
if I feel like I'm in a threat, I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, I got work tomorrow. I got some proposal that I'm about to announce. I'm like, look, I don't need no distraction. So I just think it's important to remember we are all human. And I think one of the biggest issues with today is the cancel culture.
Oh yeah,
right.
That's fucking insane.
Living with the cancel culture, and we are in the cancel culture generation.
And the cancel culture, they'll cancel you, then bring you back the next week.
Maybe maybe weird. Not. Maybe you're gone forever. And I'm just like, you know what? Look,
because honestly, my first thought, even when we say cancel culture, I think of Kanye. They say cancel, but I mean, how many people are still always talking about Kanye to this day? Yeah. So it's like they cancel you and bring you right back to fucking next week or whatever the case is. So it just be like, social media is just funny at the end of the day.
I mean, it depends on, what you're dealing with. Kanye's situation really was, arguably there wasn't really like a whole lot to say that Kanye had done something crazy. But if someone's accused of, look at what's his name, the actor that recently is being accused of domestic violence. What's his name?
That's the dude that was in Creed 3, right?
In Creed 3.
Yeah, but then I read some things they said that it ended up being not true and things like that. Though.
They say that she's now recanting the statement, right. And if that is true, that he didn't actually hit her, well, good luck with fixing his story, because the media and all the ones who run the story originally, they rarely come back to tell the story that's the correct story.
And that low key brought me to my next point when, like, how you brought up that. It's like, in the media, it's kind of funny. So, like, and I forgot dude's last name, Jonathan, whatever his name is, Creed 3. Mm-hmm. So they talk heavily about his domestic violence case.
Yeah.
But then when you go back to Dana White for the UFC, when he slapped his wife and everybody knew about it, they don't never bring that up ever no more.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even hear that story ever no more.
Yeah.
But that was a thing.
Yeah, that was.
But you will hear about the Jonathan thing for however long you're going to hear about it.
Yeah.
And they're going to keep talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that kind of crazy how when it comes to a person of color in the media, they going to push that story?
That's why I liked Chris Rock's selective outrage. I like
right. It's like you choose what you want to be mad about.
I could watch that episode over and over and over again. When he talks about y'all want to get mad at this, but you don't want to get mad at this. That's so true, right? Like, there's a double standard.
Like, you choose what you want to be mad about.
Yeah, and there's a double standard. And so, I see it all the time. I mean, there's like a situation going on right now with a big political figure in San Diego, right? But like, the Democrats who are standing with him, they don't want to criticize him. But if it was like a Republican or someone else that was accused of the things he's accused of, they'd be jumping down that person's throat, right?
And what is the purpose behind that? Like you said, if it was a Republican that jumped down his throat, but a Democrat, they're like, okay, we're gonna stand by.
Selective outrage. It's when it works for our message. It's when it works for our group. It's like, what's going on with Trump, and what's going on with that what's her name? The Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels, when he's supposed to go to jail or whatever the case may be.
So,
and he paid her for, to keep it hush hush or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And so the thing is that everybody's got selective outrage. Everybody has their opinion about what's worth fighting,
being mad about,
and what's not. Right. And they have a decision on, who they're going to go after versus who they're not.
Right.
And so that's what we're in, the selective outrage generation.
And I feel like money plays a big factor as to who we want to be mad about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you do something and it goes out, you're canceled.
Right.
And so I've already negotiated with myself that if I ever went down that street, I got like 2 backup careers.
And what's still? What's still? Because light skin, you supposed to be a singer or some other shit.
Look. I'm a great cook. And
that's me. I'm a home chef.
Yeah. And you know what? I got major skills on the computer. I know how to build websites. I'm super creative in that way. And you know what? Like, there's a whole world to see. And it's just like, the thing is that everybody should have a B, C, plan, not be stuck on just this working out or this working out or that working out.
BC plan.
A, B, C,
Okay.
Have a B, and C plan because you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
Most of my skill set is in my talking. Well, if something happened, God forbid, where I couldn't talk no more.
You lost your voice.
Damn. Shane Harris lost his voice.
Right. Now he's going to be doing sign language.
I'm doing sign language, but it ain't the same, So it's like, have a B and a C plan, backup plans, and, kind of look. I'm looking to travel the world. I've been invited out to the UK. I'm going to be going out there to speak do a speaking engagement and, a number of like meetings and engagements. I'm going to, of course, work in the UK because what else are you going to do in the UK but work,
And plus, you going out to UK obviously broadens the audience that's able to tap into you.
Yeah.
And that also, when you said UK, I don't even know why, but it made me think about when you said you about to be doing, like, you're going to be homeless.
Yeah. So obviously, San Diego has the 4th largest homeless population in the nation.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know this.
And like what he said, we're not the biggest.
Yeah. We're
ever.
not.
So it's like to be the 4th is crazy.
Yeah. We have the 8th largest city in the country. We have the 4th largest homeless population.
Okay.
So soak that in. But out of this very large amount of people, we have a disproportionate number of African Americans living on the streets.
Oh, I see.
27% nearly of the people living on our streets are black.
So then what's the other percentage of the other races?
And so,
I mean, if you know that.
I don't know that by heart.
Then don't even worry about it.
But what I can tell you is the reason why I mentioned that statistic point is because we're coming up on the 55th anniversary of Dr. King's death. Mm-hmm. It is a damn shame to have 55 years. He died on a poor people's campaign. People don't know he was in Memphis to stand up for sanitation workers who were not getting paid fair wages and who were being killed in the garbage trucks, machines.
God damn.
Yeah. And he was there to stand with them. And the night before he was set to be a part of a major protest with the garbage truck sanitation workers, he did a speech called I've Been to the Mountaintop. And he talked in that speech about all the things that he had encompassed and all the things that he had seen. And in that speech, he talked about poverty, and he was planning to prepare another march on Washington, not based on race, but on poverty.
Right.
Because he wanted to fight poverty. His whole thing was, we don't need to go to the war in Vietnam. We need to take that money and put it invested into fighting poverty. Right. And so I believe that's what killed him, what got him killed, honestly. When he took the stance on Vietnam, it was like the last straw for them, the federal government. That was when they knew this guy is too powerful and we need to get him taken out now.
He's going to start stirring up some things and they're going to start following what he's actually saying.
So if he called a poverty march, it was going to be double what he took to the first march on Washington.
Yeah, because all the poverty that's on the
Whites,
street.
Blacks,
they're like,
Asians, Latinos.
We're poor. We want to come too.
It didn't matter. It was not based on race. And I think that the new movement in America is poverty. We must solve this poverty crisis, and it must not be based on race. I know I mentioned the racial statistic only to make the case that 55 years after this man, that Democrats and Republicans love to stand up at podiums and go to King Day breakfasts and galas and taunt and flaunt.
It looks good.
Dr. King, well, his last mission was ending poverty. And so on King Day, I'm going to be sleeping out, going homeless on the day that Dr. King was killed, April 4th, 1968, April 4th, 2023. I'm going to go homeless for a night to make a statement that on the 55th anniversary of Dr. King's death, here's where we are. We got hundreds to thousands of people on the streets in the richest state in the union, the richest state in the union. And we cannot get these people off the streets because we lack the ability to understand how to implement poverty proposals and policy that addresses poverty.
It almost seems like it's just not that important.
It's not that important. And so here we are, America's finest city.
Right.
But we have the 4th largest homeless population in the country. Thousands of people, hundreds of people across our county living on the streets right now with tents. Right. So at 7 p.m. on King's death anniversary, I'll be setting up a tent at 7 p.m. and I will sleep on the streets the entire night until 6 a.m. until sunrise.
And with that being said, will there be a camera crew or security there for you?
There will be a camera crew and media will be invited. You guys are invited if y'all wanted to come see this. This will be televised.
Hey. And you said, and what was the date and time?
On April 4th, next Tuesday at 7 p.m. is when I'll begin my night. But I think the point is this, and by the way, I'm not going to get any amenities that the people living on our streets don't get.
So when you go there, they're going to provide, you're going to get a tent.
I have a tent that I bought. We're gonna set my tent up at 7 p.m. Like nobody's setting that tent up for me. Right. I'm setting it up.
Yeah.
Right. Because what I'm doing is
it's gonna be the raw.
I'm demonstrating that this is the crisis we're facing in America. This is the most important civil rights issue of this era. And if we do not solve poverty, if we don't put race aside, if we don't solve poverty, we will fail to address real policy in this era. And so what I'm going to do is set my tent up at 7 p.m. I have a sleeping bag. And if I got to go to the bathroom, guess what I got to do? I got to get up and try to walk around the streets to find a place to go to the bathroom. And the cameras will be following me every step of this journey to show, damn, he had to walk a block to go to the store to use the bathroom.
And then they'll have the cameras behind you, and they'll probably show how many people tell you, like, oh, no, you can't use the bathroom here.
Now, think about this. The mayor of San Diego has a security detail, has all of the amenities in the world, and he cannot take one night to sleep on the streets. One night. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm asking these elected officials to do. Get out here.
And you know they're not going to do that.
They're not going to do it.
No.
But get out here and feel what these people feel.
Right.
So that you can go make policy that really is based on not what you think is going on.
You see it.
What you see and what you feel, and talk to these people.
Right.
The other issue that's going on is you got people, seniors, that are far too old, first of all, to be let out of the hospital at 11:30 at night, and they can't catch a bus because the buses aren't running past 12. And there's nowhere for them to go. And they're dying on our streets.
Right.
So all of this is going to be culminated to make a grandstand stage in the fourth largest homeless population in the country. We are 55 years away from Dr. King's death, and we still have not addressed poverty head on in this country.
And also, where will you be doing this when you be setting up a tent?
Scripps Mercy Hospital in Hillcrest, because that's where a lot of the major homeless population is in the downtown San Diego area.
Definitely.
And a lot of the closest hospital to downtown is Scripps Mercy in Hillcrest. So that's where a lot of the homeless go to when they go to the hospital, and definitely. UCSD.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why do you feel race plays such basically a big issue on once you got to push anything? Why is race such a big issue on it?
Well, I think that it's a big issue when you do have to deal with it.
Because if you're trying to help somebody, why does it matter who you're trying to help? It's like you just said.
Because people come from different experiences. It's like I was the first leader to get foster care added on to all the shelters in San Diego, where foster care is a question on the intake sheet. So when a person walks in, they're asked, were you previously in the foster care system? Mm. And so that's because of work that we did to get that added on to all the shelters in the county. When a homeless person walks into the shelter, they have to mark that they are a former foster youth. Mm. And what does that do? It tells us that, wow, you got 30% of your former foster youth going homeless.
Right.
We need to expand transitional housing resources. We need to expand more transitional resources and prevent homelessness. Mm-hmm. See, homelessness can be prevented by, first of all, we got to dig into the pipelines. Are they coming out of prison and going homeless? Are they coming out of foster care and going homeless?
You got to get the details.
So once we figure out where people are coming from, we can stop those pipelines and we can circumvent them by creating transitional resources for every situation. Mm-hmm. That is what they're failing to do right now, is get specific about where people are coming from, because they don't want to do the data research and analysis to figure out what the
hard work,
why people are going homeless, not that they're there. And so you think building all this housing is going to be this number one solution to the problem, and it's not. It's a cohesive approach between the county, which provides social services and mental health services and behavioral health services, and the city, which provides and builds housing, expedited building, which I do know the mayor has implemented here.
Mm-hmm.
But you need a plethora, what I call what I call a wraparound group of services to meet the needs of the people living on our streets. It's not a monolithic problem.
Right. So it's not something you could just put out there and it's like, oh, this is it. It's easy.
Yeah.
So I also had a question.
Yeah.
Because I know, like you said, like how you felt the guilt of your mom if you could have did more or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Now, even going back to that, what do you feel like if your mom was here today, what do you feel like you could have said to her or she would have said to you?
I mean, I think that it would have been more like accepting the situation.
And obviously you can't build up what it could be because it's just like hearsay or what if.
I think I would have been more accepting of what the situation was, right? I wasn't accepting it at that time. Mm-hmm. I was denying it.
When you say accepting the fact that she was on drugs
and that her path was different. Her journey was different.
Okay.
Right? I can't force you. I can't change you.
Exactly.
Right?
And you were 16.
Right. And so I would take that weight off of my shoulders and allow myself to not be as heavy on myself regarding what was happening. Right? If I could, that's what I would do differently.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. And that's always something. I mean, obviously, that's just you assuming what this could be or anything like that. But that's always, I feel like, something good for you to even think about. Yeah. Because your parents passed away so early for you. Now, looking where you are now, I'm sure you would love for them to have seen, like, Mom, Dad, like, look what I've actually become. Yeah. Like, I'm sure I strayed so far away from what people assumed I would be. Yeah. To now where I am now.
Yeah. And they see, I have no doubt that they're with me, you know. I have no doubt. I have these experiences where it's like, wow, that was Dad, or wow, that was Mom, you know. And so I think that, you know, I had to grow comfortable with I think I'm still getting comfortable and dealing with the fact that they're not here because, you know, you still deal with the holidays and you still deal with different things, you know. But for the most part, I think that I've accepted the situation. And I also think that if my mom was here today, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I'd be trying to take care of my mom and probably doing some other stuff, running the streets or whatever.
Your time would be more so dedicated to kind of getting her better and like making sure my mom is right.
We would be having a unhealthy codependent relationship. I have no doubt about it. And I would not be doing what I'm doing. I'd be having a codependent relationship with her and trying to save her from
the evils that she got coming her way. And that's why I always believe that God don't make mistakes. Right. So everything that did happen, like you said, if she was here, I don't think I would be where I am today because I would have had to been partaking in so much taking care of her.
100.
And now that she's not and everybody else is not here, you were able to focus on the goals that you had ahead of you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I do definitely believe that as well. Like you just said, like everything kind of happens for a reason. Yeah. And this was a reason why they were having to pass. I mean, obviously that's unfortunate. Yeah. But the fact that did happen, this brought you to where you are today.
I think that probably over the last 4 years, I've had the major revelation that you cannot control life.
Exactly.
Life happens.
There's a lot of aspects of life. It's just like, I can't do anything about that.
Right. And so it's good to not give up, but sort of be able to wave the white flag in your life and say, okay, you know what? This is the way things are. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up and let's figure it out.
Be a better me.
Right. But I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to re-navigate. Mm-hmm. And I think that once I started thinking through that and seeing life through that lens, it did give me a different perspective. I kind of do walk with that I've been to the mountaintop perspective because now I think that if something was to happen or whatever the case is, I'm cool with it because this is the way it's supposed to be. Exactly. Right. And I think that's what Dr. King was saying on that night before he was killed. Right. He was saying that I'm cool with whatever happens He said it. I may not get there with you, but I know that you'll get there. You know, we'll get there. It's this ability to recognize that life is not something you can control, and life will happen, and you just have to let it happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And with that being said, like, so where you are now, has there been any of the foster families that reached out to you to see that where you are now today? And even speaking, some of them that may have done harm to you, have they ever reached out and apologized or anything of that level where you are today, them seeing you now?
No, I mean, the one foster parent who was extremely abusive, she never reached out to apologize. Yeah. You know, she never reached out to apologize. However, you know, she passed away about a year ago.
And you kept tabs with her?
I think I heard from her every now and then, but it was more like she was kind of like, you owe me. Like,
how the hell you owe her, but she did you the way she did you?
Right. But it was this idea that, you know, you need to not forget where you came from. You need to come back, you know, where you came from, you know, and
why the hell would I come back to that?
Right. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So there was a lot of, I think, pain with that, you know? And, you know, the thing is that when you go through the cycle and the process that I did and then rise to the occasion, you do get those calls from people who didn't believe in you, for people who thought that you wouldn't actually do that, right? I mean, I've surpassed so many levels of predictions about my life that I ain't even counting the damn levels. You know what I'm saying? Because I done been focused on
you elevated.
Yeah, but I mean, you do take a step back to look at the picture and say, "Wow,
look how much I really did do."
Yeah, and I think that when you're right in front of it, you don't see it, but you know,
you step back.
You step back. And people, when you're not no longer there, people remember and see all of that locked into one picture. You know, this person did this, and this, and this. And so I think, you know, that was the hardest thing with her, was that, you know, she had
to accept. Instead of being like, you owe me, she had to really accept, like, he doesn't owe me. Like, I actually owe him for the shit I've actually done to him. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, obviously, when you get older, it's hard for other people to even get out of that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm sure this could go on forever, and I would love to even have you back on for when, like I told you.
Hey, we could do part 2.
Oh, no, and that's not even, like I told you about when we have conversations about topics and like that, I would love to even bring you back on.
Yeah.
So definitely, I appreciate you for coming on and giving me your time. Because like we even spoke about with him, but Charles was like, this is a busy man. So like I said, for him to give us the time is bigger than anything.
Yeah.
And be comfortable inviting us into your space, that's major for us.
Yeah.
So again,
what I want people to know is like, I'm a human being.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a robot.
Right.
You know, when people see me with my suit on and stuff, they think that I can't approach him or whatever.
Right.
You know, I mean, look, I'm a Padres fan.
There you go.
You know, I have a life and I'm not a robot. I am skeptical, right? I don't trust everybody.
Neither do I.
But at the end of the day, look, we're all humans. We're all humans, and you know, we all deserve the opportunity to grow and evolve and learn.
100%.
You know? So I'll bring my umbrella next time I come on.
I appreciate you. And with that being said, it's been another episode of the BiGG Umbrella Podcast. That's big with 2 G's. I'm going to repeat that. That's big with 2 G's. And it's a wrap. There we go.
There we go.
And we good to go. Well, let's get some tacos, nigga. Can we really get some tacos? You trying to get some tacos? Let's get some tacos, nigga.